The Honda Civic continues to be one of the best-selling compact sedans. And today we have the 2020 Honda Civic LX, which is the base model Civic. So I'm going to show you everything you get on a base model, priced at around $21,000. And it's honestly really practical, really efficient. We're going to take a full detailed look coming right up. Before I start this off, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Honda Cars of Rockwall in Rockwall, Texas. They've been letting me take out cars for a long time, and they were super generous to let me show you this 2020 Honda Civic. So if you're in the DFW area, please be sure to check them out. And also, if you want to skip around for different parts of the video, like the exterior, the interior, or the test drive portion, check the description below for timestamps. Welcome everyone, thank you so much for tuning in for this 2020 Civic LX review. Now I showed you the 2019 model and some of the changes, and this one carries over from that model. So starting right up front, the refresh Civic gives you the black bars running across instead of that chrome bar running on the grille. You've got a glossy black and kind of a matte black, and then you've got a spot with a little bit of rakes where the fog lights would typically be. Now as you can see right there, you've got an LED daytime running light. It's a strip running underneath of the headlight. You've got halogen headlights here except for the top touring trim, and then incandescent turn signals. And this is the platinum white from Honda. It's a sparkly white, it's metallic-y, it looks pretty nice. It's kind of hard to tell right here, but I think it looks good with the black accents on this Civic, especially with that front end and the mirror. Now you can probably tell right there, those are actually hubcaps. So you've got real physical alloy wheels on the other trims, but then we got the steel wheels here with the hubcaps. And honestly, if you scuff those or run into a curb, it's gonna cost you a lot less to replace those, but let me know your thoughts on that below. Dimensionally, the Civic is about 183 inches long. It's a compact car, but it is really easy to maneuver, but still really spacious, all things considered. The Civic also has kind of a fastback design, like a fastback style coming off the back. And then once you actually do get to the rear end, you've got these interesting C-shaped headlights, kind of like claws, lobster claws, and then you've got LED light bars in those brake lights with an incandescent turn signal. And overall, let me know what you think of the Civic design. Definitely a lot different than the last generation. Cargo space is where the Civic does a fantastic job considering its overall dimensions. So you can open up the trunk with the key fob or with the button inside. And back here you're going to get 15.1 cubic feet, which is really generous for this size of a vehicle. It's a wide trunk, it's got a decent size opening, and you can even fold down the second row seats in one big swoop. On top of that, there's also a spare tire under here. And here's a fun fact. This was 15.1 cubic feet. That's the exact same as the Toyota Camry, which is a mid-size sedan and about 10 inches longer than this one. In fact, the Corolla, which is in the same category as the Civic, has 2 cubic feet less than the Civic, so this is really spacious. Now, since this Civic doesn't have the smart key system, I'll show you what we have in a second, but we get these cloth seats. You can get dark cloth or this light cloth. I think they look pretty nice, honestly. They're fairly comfortable. The only omission is that they don't have lumbar support on this base model. You can move the seat up and down. You can actually pump action it up and down and still recline, but it's all manual adjustments. The actual cloth is soft. It seemed like there was a period of time where cloth seats were starting to get really firm, but this is actually nice and soft and pretty comfortable. Now, I haven't been able to spend a prolonged period of time in here, but I drove a last generation Civic and I know that these are more comfortable than those seats are. And at 5'9", I've got really good headroom. I do have the seat all the way down. That's where I like it. But even tall people should be able to fit in here. It's really generous with space. If you want heated seats or leather seats, you're going to have to move up in trim level for that. All right, now one thing that differentiates this from the other Civics is that this actually gives you a real physical key. Well, the other ones do too, but that's all you get. There's no push button start, no remote start. It's just old school like that, and I honestly like that. Now, I would be willing to bet that they will do away with this type of starting system and give you a push button start on the next generation base model. So if you want a Civic with a real key, you got to go for this one. Now, real quickly through the interior, starting on the door, this upper panel is actually a soft touch if you like to rest your arm. This is hard touch, but I kind of like this light color, and then you've got a cloth, somewhat padded material right there. The front two windows are automatic one touch up and down, and then you've got a little storage cubby right there and a big enough area for a bottle holder. The actual trunk opening button is right there. The rest of the interior in this Honda is pretty much unchanged from last year. You've got a couple different mixes of trim pieces and material quality. Some of the competitors have kind of moved a little bit upstream or more premium, I guess you could say, but the Civic definitely is still not a slouch in terms of build quality. Now, Honda steering wheel remains unchanged as well. You've got radio controls, you've got information display controls up there, cruise control settings over here, and even to turn on your driver assist features. And then nothing changes up here for this year. You've still kind of got your digital gauge on the left and your fuel tank gauge on the right. And then right in the middle, you've got your tachometer and digital speedometer. And then under there, using your steering wheel, you've got a couple different trip computer options you can scroll through. You can customize different settings like your lights and your doors and toggle between miles per hour and kilometers. So this is a little bit basic, but it gives you what you need. And then as we go over here, so all of the other Civics are going to give you a touch screen, but this one gives us this 5-inch LCD. This is not a touch screen, but it does have Bluetooth. It does not have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. So if you want that, you'd have to move up to the Sport trim. But I really like actually having physical buttons like this. Physical volume knob, tuning knob. You can control everything with the knobs and the buttons and your presets. Another thing, if you want an upgraded stereo, this just has a 4-speaker system, and you can move up in stereos as you move up in trims with the Civic. Now, to my surprise, you don't actually have manual climate controls. This is an automatic climate control, so it's single zone. So you just set the temperature and it will control it. It's not a dual zone where passenger and driver get their separate temperatures, but even on the base model, I'm kind of surprised to see automatic climate control. And then right under there, you've got a padded area with a couple of feeders for some plugins and some cords to put your phone in your little storage area. And then below that, you've got another little storage shelf with a USB port and a 12-volt power outlet. So nice little cubby that feeds up into the one above. And then for Honda's shifter, pretty generic. Go ahead and move into reverse, give you a look at the backup camera. So Honda does not give you dynamic guidance lines on this trim where it moves, but if you press this button, you can toggle between a wide view, a normal view, or straight down from the bumper. So that's at least helpful. You can put it back into S mode if you want for sport mode, or in a low to keep a low gear. You've also got brake hold and electronic parking brake, no more physical handbrake or e-brake, and then your economy mode over here. Now the center console is a pretty cool and neat area with the Civic. You kind of have a soft padded area on both sides right here. Cup holders work well and accommodate large drinks. You can slide the cup holders back and have a big giant tall cup holder right there while still having these cup holders. You can totally move these around. You can even move this center armrest, so you can move it forward, you can move it back, you can lift it out of the way, and you've got a ton of storage overall. And one thing to top it off is you've got a divider right here that you can move out of the way, and you can actually move the cup holders out of the way too, so you can have a giant storage bin. Honda gives you a pretty good sized glove box, but it is not lockable. And then right up above, just your automatic manual flipping dimming mirror. Incandescent bulbs up above, and no sunglass holder. A little bit of a bummer, but you can store those elsewhere. And then there's no lights for your visor here, but you do get a mirror. And even on the base model, the visor will slide, so that's good to see. Now a quick look at visibility. The A-pillar is pretty small, and looking out the back, it does get kind of scrunched. You've got that little window right there, but the body styles of these new cars makes it a little more difficult, but that back window is actually pretty good size. Now, as I'm sitting behind myself at 5'9", I've still got good foot space and quite good knee space, and there's a nice cutout in these seats to give you even a little extra space. The door still gives you a bottle holder, which could be good for kids. There is a floor hump in the middle, so if someone's sitting in the middle seat, that will be a little bit obnoxious. As you can see, there's no plug-ins or AC vents back here. You do have the AC vents up in front, and there are some floor heater ducts, but no direct AC vents. Now, one exclusion for this base model is that we do not get a fold-down center armrest. You do get that on the other trims, and same goes with map pockets. No map pockets on this base model. But even sitting back here, even with this kind of body style and roofline, I can still sit here without my head actually pushing into the ceiling. So that's fantastic. This, despite the size of the car, could honestly be a family car with a decent amount of space. Now, under the hood of the 2020 Civic, there are two different engine options, but the LX and the Sport model get the same engine. It's a 2.0 liter 4-cylinder engine that's going to give you 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. Now, the big surprising factor is that on the brochures, on their tech specs, and even building the Civic, the LX, on the Honda's website, at least in the US, you can't get the manual version anymore. There used to be a 6-speed manual that I've seen some 2020 Civics have, but now it says the CVT is standard. I'm not sure if that's for real, but this one has the continuous variable transmission, and miles per gallon is really good. MPG is going to be 30 miles per gallon in the city and 38 on the highway and 33 combined. So this could be incorrect or maybe just some kind of random flaw on Honda's website, but you can't get the manual with this base model. You got to get it with the Sport, the SI, or the Sport or Sport Touring on the hatchback, or the Type R. All right, y'all, we are just getting going in this 2020 Honda Civic base model, the LX. Now in this test drive, I'm going to give you my first impressions of the Civic, what it's like to drive this around, how easy it is to drive, the ride comfort, and maybe get on it a little bit and let you know what it's like to drive this Civic. So I've driven a Civic before, but you know, first impressions when you get in this car is that it feels light and kind of tossable and a little bit playful. The steering is quite responsive. It's a really, really easy car to drive around. It's a really nice balance of comfort and handling. So the Civic is kind of sought after because it's a little bit more fun than other cars, and you can see just how quickly it responds. It does a nice job of handling, even on the base model. It's not going to handle any worse than, you know, the Sport model or even the EX, the turbo. But there is a difference between the turbo engines and this engine, which I will show you in a little bit. Now the braking in the Civic is really responsive. So this is a lightweight car, it's a small car, and you don't have to get on the brakes all that much in order to really accelerate. But with this engine, if I go ahead and get on it, so the CVT transmission, continuous variable transmission, is going to feel and behave different than a regular automatic. Honda does a pretty good job with theirs, but with a naturally aspirated engine like this one has, you're going to have to get the RPMs up a little higher in order to get a decent amount of power, whereas if you drive the 1.5 liter turbo on the EX trim level and higher, you're going to be able to push on the gas just a little bit and it's going to give you a pretty much immediate boost. But I honestly I like the way a naturally aspirated engine feels. I like being able to get the RPMs up. I like the longevity aspect of a naturally aspirated engine most of the time. And it just handles well. It's just a fun car to drive. You can zip around really well. You know, people of all ages drive Civics, and people of all ages enjoy driving the Civic. If you want this to be a car that can be kind of just fun and economical, you can do that. If you want a car that is spacious enough but a low price and a good value, this is perfect for that too. You're never going to miss the economy aspect of the Honda Civic. They do great efficiency wise no matter which engine you get. And when you compare this to bigger vehicles like, for example, the Toyota Camry, this has pretty darn close to that much space, even in terms of legroom and for sure the cargo room. I think my favorite thing about driving the Civic is just how nimble it feels. It feels so nimble. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in S mode. So we've got sport mode. Right away, the RPMs raised and kicked up. So with those up higher, you get on it, and the car is ready to go. Now, I'm not gonna drive this like it's mine because it's not mine. It's the dealership's car, and again, a big thank you to Honda Cars of Rockwall for letting me take it out. And again, on the brakes, it does a nice job. And we've gone over a fair amount of bumps, some broken pieces of pavement, and the Civic isn't going to be as plush as the Accord, for example. The Honda Accord is a nice handling and riding car. It still feels really nimble, but the balance of its nimbleness and its responsiveness to steering and its actual ride comfort is quite good. And Honda actually uses an independent suspension in the rear, which can give you the best of both worlds with handling as well as its ride comfort. Now, unfortunately, I have not been able to take a Civic out for an extended week-long drive like the press vehicle, so I haven't been able to do my decibel rating tests on here. I would be curious how it was. The last generation Civic was honestly pretty loud, but this one I know for sure is quieter than that. Now, if you're considering this versus a Honda Accord, there's a pretty big difference in terms of how much space and the way that it feels. The Accord feels like a pretty good sized vehicle, because it is. I mean, it's not a huge vehicle, it's mid-size, but it just feels more substantial. But if you want to keep the budget down, and if you want a car that still drives well, you can get a fair amount of features in the upper trims, but you want a more of a basic car, this LX is still good and still kind of represents a true base model. So to wrap things up on this 2020 Civic LX, how's the value to you? What do you think of this as a base model? Even though it wasn't redesigned, like completely redone since 2016, it still holds its own. It's competitive, it's efficient, it's practical. It's got everything that you need. Now, of course, if you want some of the bells and whistles, you can move up to all the way up to the touring model or check out the Honda Accord. But I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think of the Honda Civic base model, the LX. Again, a big thank you to Honda Cars of Rockwall. Be sure to watch some of these other videos down below and subscribe for weekly reviews. Have a great day.